I never thought that something as simple as a joke could shatter my entire world. For years, I had built a successful business, while living below my means, keeping my wealth a secret even from the woman I married. When Jessica and I first met, I fell hard for her kindness and genuine spirit. She loved me for who I was, not what I had, or at least that was what I believed. Then came that night after a party with her friends when she looked at me and casually said, "I do not want a poor husband, lol," not realizing I was worth millions. If you are watching this video right now, let me know where you are tuning in from in the comments. Hit that like and subscribe button if you want to see how I revealed my true net worth to my ex-wife after she left me for someone she thought was richer. Growing up in a rough neighborhood on the south side of Chicago taught me the value of every dollar from an early age. My father passed away when I was just 9 years old, leaving my mother to raise me and my younger sister, Amelia, on her own. I can still remember the exhaustion in her eyes when she would come home after working 3 different jobs just to keep food on our table and the lights on. Those early years shaped my entire perspective on money and success. By the time I reached high school, I was already working odd jobs after class, stocking shelves at the local grocery store, delivering newspapers before dawn, mowing lawns on weekends, anything I could find to help ease the burden on my mother. My friends would invite me to parties or to hang out at the mall, but I always declined. Every hour spent socializing was an hour I could have spent earning money to help my family. College seemed like an impossible dream until I managed to secure a scholarship to the University of Illinois. Even with the scholarship, money was tight. I lived on ramen noodles and peanut butter sandwiches, often skipping meals altogether to stretch my budget further. While my classmates spent their weekends partying, I was in the library studying or working part-time jobs. The sacrifice was worth it when I graduated with a degree in computer science and zero debt. My entrepreneurial journey began in my small apartment with nothing but a second-hand laptop and a big idea. I wanted to create security software that would protect small businesses from cyber threats at an affordable price. My first 2 attempts at launching a company failed miserably. I lost all my savings and had to move back in with my mother temporarily. Some people might have given up at that point, but those failures only strengthened my resolve. The third time was different. I refined my software, focusing on making it more user-friendly while maintaining top-level security features. A presentation to a group of angel investors changed everything. One investor, Thomas Blackwell, saw potential in both my product and my determination. He provided the initial funding that allowed me to hire a small team and properly launch Security Shield. Within 18 months, our client list grew from a handful of local businesses to over 500 companies across the country. Revenue skyrocketed, and suddenly, I found myself running a multi-million-dollar enterprise. Despite this success, I maintained the same frugal lifestyle. I believed strongly in reinvesting profits back into the company and saving for the future rather than splurging on luxuries. It was at a charity fundraiser for underserved youth that I first met Jessica. I had become a major donor to the program, remembering how similar programs had helped me as a kid. Jessica was volunteering, helping to coordinate the silent auction. Her bright smile caught my attention immediately, and I found myself drawn to her genuine enthusiasm for helping others. I approached her near the refreshment table, nearly spilling my drink in the process. She laughed at my nervousness, a warm, inviting sound that made me instantly comfortable. We talked for hours that night, long after the event had ended. I learned she was a marketing professional who spent her free time volunteering with various charities. Her passion for making a difference matched my own, and I found myself completely captivated. For our first official date, I took her to a small coffee shop in my old neighborhood. It was nothing fancy, just a local spot with great espresso and homemade pastries. Jessica seemed charmed by the cozy atmosphere and the fact that the owner knew me by name. We sat in a corner booth and talked about everything from our favorite books to our dreams for the future. What impressed me most about Jessica was that she never once asked what I did for a living during that first date. When I eventually told her I owned a software company, she seemed interested, but not overly impressed. She asked thoughtful questions about why I started the business and what problems I was trying to solve, rather than inquiring about its size or profitability. As we continued dating, I fell deeper in love with her authenticity. Jessica seemed content with simple pleasures, enjoying picnics in the park and movie nights at home, just as much as the occasional dinner at a nice restaurant. I began to believe I had found someone who valued the same things I did, someone who saw beyond material possessions. I made a conscious decision not to disclose the full extent of my wealth. The company was growing rapidly, and my annual income had reached 7 figures, but I kept this information to myself. I drove a reliable but modest sedan, lived in a comfortable but not extravagant apartment, and generally maintained the lifestyle of someone making a decent living rather than a fortune. I wanted to be sure that Jessica loved me for who I was, not for my bank account. After dating for 18 months, I asked Jessica to marry me during a sunset walk through the park where we had spent so many happy afternoons. Nothing flashy, no elaborate setup, just an intimate moment between the two of us. The ring was beautiful but not ostentatious. Jessica cried as she said yes, and I felt like the luckiest man alive. We decided on a simple wedding in that same park, surrounded by close friends and family. Jessica seemed perfectly content with our modest celebration, saying that all that mattered was starting our life together. After the wedding, we bought a nice 3-bedroom house in a pleasant suburb. It was well within what Jessica believed was our budget based on what she thought I earned. The first few months of marriage were blissful. We settled into a comfortable routine, enjoying our new home and planning for our future together. I continued to work hard, often staying late at the office, as Security Shield expanded into international markets. Our growth was exponential, and my personal wealth continued to climb, though I kept these details from Jessica. About 6 months into our marriage, I began to notice subtle changes in Jessica. It started with small comments about friends from her office who were taking exotic vacations or buying luxury cars. She would scroll through Instagram in bed, sighing as she looked at photos of acquaintances posing in front of beautiful European landmarks or showing off designer purchases. When I would suggest we take a weekend trip to a nearby state park or local beach town, she would agree, but with noticeably less enthusiasm than before. "Madison from work just got back from the Amalfi Coast," she would say. "The photos look absolutely incredible. Maybe we could save up for something like that someday." I would explain that I was focused on reinvesting in the company, building our financial security for the long term. "Good things come to those who wait," I would tell her, believing she shared my patience and perspective on money. She would nod and smile, but the disappointment in her eyes was impossible to miss. As time went on, these comments became more frequent. Jessica began to question our financial choices more directly. Why did we buy this house in this neighborhood when we could have looked in more upscale areas? Why was I still driving my 5-year-old car when we could afford something newer? Why did we always have to be so careful with money? Our first real argument came when Jessica wanted to renovate our kitchen with high-end appliances and custom cabinetry. I suggested waiting another year, pointing out that our current kitchen was perfectly functional. "But it looks so dated," she insisted. "Every time I have my friends over, I feel embarrassed. Natalie just redid her entire first floor, and her husband makes less than you do." I felt a pang of worry at her comparison. How did she know what Natalie's husband made? And why did it matter? I gently reminded Jessica that we had different priorities and financial goals than her friends might have. She eventually relented, but the tension lingered. More disagreements followed. Jessica started buying more expensive clothes and accessories, justifying each purchase as a necessity for her professional image. When I expressed concern about the spending, she became defensive, accusing me of being controlling and cheap. These arguments always ended the same way, with one of us sleeping on the couch and a frosty silence the next morning. The changes in Jessica went beyond her spending habits. She began spending more time with a new group of friends, women married to successful executives and professionals who lived much more lavish lifestyles than we did. She would come home from lunches or shopping trips with them full of stories about their beautiful homes, exotic vacations, and expensive hobbies. I noticed she posted less about our activities on social media, but was quick to share when we did anything that might impress others. Our relationship started to feel like a performance, with Jessica increasingly concerned about appearances and status. The authentic, caring woman I had fallen in love with seemed to be fading away, replaced by someone I barely recognized. Despite these changes, I held on to hope that this was just a phase. I continued to work hard, and Security Shield continued to thrive. By our second anniversary, the company had grown to over 200 employees with offices in 3 countries. My personal income had reached $1.5 million annually, though on paper Jessica still believed I made around $150,000. I considered coming clean about our true financial situation many times. Perhaps if Jessica knew how wealthy we actually were, she would stop comparing us to her friends and be content. But something held me back. A voice inside warned me that revealing my wealth now would only validate her increasingly materialistic outlook. I wanted her to remember what had drawn us together in the first place, values that had nothing to do with money. In retrospect, I see I was trying to protect something that was already slipping away. Jessica was changing, or perhaps showing her true self, and I was desperately clinging to the woman I thought I had married. The distance between us grew wider. With each passing day, an invisible chasm neither of us acknowledged, but both felt acutely. The breaking point came after a dinner party at the home of Jessica's friend Danielle and her husband Gregory. Their house was a sprawling mansion in the most exclusive neighborhood in our city, decorated with expensive art and designer furniture. Throughout the evening, Gregory had boasted about his new sports car, their upcoming trip to Bali, and the private school their children attended. On the drive home, Jessica was unusually quiet. When we arrived, she poured herself a large glass of wine and sat at our kitchen table, a distant look in her eyes. I asked if something was wrong, and the floodgates opened. "Do you know what Danielle asked me tonight?" Jessica said, her words slightly slurred from the alcohol. She asked when we were planning to upgrade to a better neighborhood. She actually felt sorry for me, Zion. Sorry for me. As if we are some charity case. I tried to reassure her that what others thought did not matter, that we had a beautiful home and a good life. But Jessica was not listening. "I cannot do this anymore," she continued, tears forming in her eyes. "I am tired of being the friend everyone feels sorry for. I am tired of saying no to trips and experiences because we supposedly cannot afford them. I do not want a poor husband, lol." The casual addition of lol felt like a knife twisting in my chest, reducing our marriage to a joke. "Is that what you think I am?" I asked quietly. "A poor husband you need to be embarrassed about." "That is not what I meant," she backpedaled, realizing she had crossed a line. "I just meant that I want more from life than always pinching pennies. Everyone else seems to be enjoying their lives while we just work and save for some future that never comes." We talked in circles for hours that night. Jessica insisted she loved me, but was unhappy with our lifestyle. She wanted to live in the moment and experience all life has to offer. I explained my philosophy about financial security and long-term planning, but my words fell on deaf ears. We went to bed, angry backs, turned to each other, the gulf between us wider than ever. For the next week, Jessica was distant and cold. She spent even more time away from home, returning late and avoiding conversation. I suspected she was discussing our marriage with her friends, getting advice that likely reinforced her dissatisfaction. Still, I was completely unprepared when I came home from work one evening to find divorce papers on our dining room table. "I need to be true to myself," Jessica said when I confronted her, her voice steady, as if she had rehearsed this speech. "We want different things from life, Zion. We are financially incompatible. You will always choose saving over living, and I cannot spend the rest of my life waiting to enjoy the fruits of our labor." I stared at the papers in disbelief, my hands shaking as I flipped through the pages. Jessica had already consulted a lawyer, had already begun the process of dismantling our life together. The clinical language described the dissolution of what I had thought was a loving partnership, reducing it to assets and liabilities to be divided. Under the section listing known financial resources, Jessica had estimated my worth based on my supposed salary, not knowing that my actual net worth was many times higher. In that moment, I could have revealed everything. I could have shown her our actual financial statements, the investment accounts, the company valuation. I could have told her that the lifestyle she envied was easily within our reach and had been all along. But what would that accomplish? Would I want her to stay for the money she now knew I had, rather than leave for the money she thought I did not have? Either way, her decision would be based on finances rather than love. "If this is what you want, I will not fight it," I said finally, my voice barely above a whisper. "I just wish you had been honest about what you really wanted from the beginning." The divorce proceeded quickly and quietly. I agreed to her terms without argument, only ensuring that my business remained solely mine, which Jessica did not contest since she had no idea of its true value. Within 6 weeks, our marriage was legally over. Jessica moved out of our house and into a luxury apartment downtown, presumably stretching her budget to maintain appearances among her affluent friends. I threw myself into work, finding solace in the continued growth of my company. 2 months after our divorce was finalized, I was scrolling through social media when a photo stopped me cold. Jessica, beaming with a massive diamond ring on her finger, standing next to a man I recognized from business circles, Walter Pritchard. Walter had a reputation for flaunting his wealth, always dressed in designer suits, driving exotic cars, and boasting about his business ventures. What many people did not know, but I did through industry connections, was that much of it was smoke and mirrors. Walter was leveraged to the hilt, his companies underperforming, his lifestyle funded by debt and increasingly desperate investors. Over the next few weeks, my social media feed was flooded with photos from Jessica and Walter's whirlwind romance. Dinners at exclusive restaurants, weekends at luxury resorts, shopping sprees at high-end boutiques. Then came the lavish wedding at a historic estate, Jessica, in a designer gown that must have cost more than our entire wedding had. The irony of the situation was not lost on me. Jessica had left me because she thought I could not provide the lifestyle she wanted, only to end up with a man whose apparent wealth was largely an illusion. Meanwhile, my company had attracted the attention of a major technology publication which ran a feature story on Security Shield's innovative approach and remarkable growth. The article mentioned my estimated annual income of $1.5 million and the company's valuation at over $30 million. I wondered if Jessica would see it. Life has a way of coming full circle when you least expect it. 3 months after Jessica and Walter's extravagant wedding, my phone rang at 2 a.m. I almost did not answer, but something told me I should. Jessica's voice on the other end was almost unrecognizable, choked with sobs. "Zion, I need your help," she managed between gasps for air. "Walter is gone. Everything is gone." I sat up in bed, suddenly wide awake. "What do you mean, gone?" "He left last night. Took everything valuable from the house and disappeared." She explained, her words tumbling out frantically. "The bank called today. Our accounts are empty. There are people coming to the house saying we owe them money. So much money, Zion. The car has been repossessed. I do not know what to do." As Jessica continued, the full picture emerged. Walter had been running a sophisticated investment scam, using new investors' money to pay returns to earlier ones, while siphoning off millions for his lavish lifestyle. When he could not find new investors, the scheme collapsed. He had fled the country, leaving Jessica to face the music with creditors and potentially law enforcement. "I know I have no right to ask," Jessica said after explaining everything, "but I have nowhere else to go. No one else will help me. My friends, the ones I was so desperate to impress, they all abandoned me the minute they heard what happened." I was silent for a long moment, processing everything I had just heard. Finally, I spoke. "Come to my office tomorrow morning at 10. The address is 450 Park Avenue, 47th floor. I had recently moved Security Shield's headquarters to a prestigious building in the heart of the financial district, a far cry from our humble beginnings. Park Avenue. Jessica sounded confused. I thought your office was in that small building downtown. Things have changed, I said simply. I will see you at 10. The next morning I watched from my corner office as Jessica entered our sleek, modern reception area. Even from a distance I could see the shock on her face as she took in the space, trying to reconcile this successful company with the modest business she thought I ran. My assistant escorted her to my office, her eyes widening further as she walked through the open workspace where hundreds of employees were busy at their desks. When Jessica entered my office, she barely resembled the confident woman who had left me. Her designer clothes looked rumpled as if she had slept in them. Her face was pale with dark circles under her puffy red eyes. She stood awkwardly just inside the doorway, clutching her purse like a lifeline. "This is your company?" she asked, looking around at the floor-to-ceiling windows, offering panoramic views of the city. I nodded, gesturing for her to sit in one of the chairs facing my desk. Once she was seated, I handed her a copy of the magazine that had featured me, open to the article about Security Shield and my personal success. Jessica's hands trembled as she read, her face growing even paler. $1.5 million a year, she whispered, looking up at me with wide eyes. All this time, I confirmed quietly. Tears began streaming down her face. Why did you not tell me? Why did you let me believe we were struggling? Why did you let me leave? Would it have changed anything that mattered? I asked. If I had told you about the money, would you have stayed? Because you loved me, or because you loved what I could give you? Jessica had no answer, her silence more revealing than any words could have been. She set the magazine down and buried her face in her hands, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. "I am so sorry," she eventually managed. "I made the biggest mistake of my life. I was shallow and materialistic and blind. You were the best thing that ever happened to me, and I threw it away for nothing." She looked up at me, hope flickering in her tear-filled eyes. "Maybe we could try again." "I have learned my lesson, Zion. I understand what truly matters now." I took a deep breath, feeling a strange sense of peace wash over me. "Jessica, I do not hate you. I am not even angry anymore. But we cannot go back. What we had is gone. You did not leave me because I was poor. You left me because you thought I was poor. The distinction matters." The hope in her eyes died, replaced by resignation and shame. "What am I going to do? I have nothing left. No money, no home, no husband, no friends. I have arranged for a lawyer to help you navigate the legal issues with Walter's creditors." I told her, sliding a business card across the desk. "And I have paid for 6 months at a decent